Someone, Philip, was saying, like, every one of you, when you're doing the BSP videos, it's like...
Everyone starts.
Like, it's like... Off the beginning.
You know there was no
All right.
way to stop it.
Cookies.
You want some bread?
Okay. Is that what you got over there? Okay, sorry. Using the ABCs of behavior to teach. So we've already gone over a general review of what the ABCs of behavior are. So now we're going to learn about how we use them here to teach skills. So much of what you do as a therapist actually involves your client learning new skills, which makes you just as much a teacher as a therapist. The ABC unit we talked about in the previous video helps us understand the learning process. So let's review. Under certain circumstances, which is the antecedent before the behavior, we behave a certain way, the behavior itself, which results in a certain consequence. There are different types of consequences, and these consequences affect whether we will do that behavior again. So there are reinforcing consequences, which make us more likely to behave that way in the future. And then there are neutral or punishing consequences, which make us less likely to behave that way in the future. So let's go over a few examples. Here the antecedent is that your steak is blah blah bland. So you salt it with 15 aggressive shakes of salt, which results in salty steak. So, what is... How do you think this consequence will affect salt shaking, the behavior of salt shaking, when your steak is bland in the future?
You'll probably do less.
Less
Or
salt
none
shaking.
at all.
No more salt shaking. So now we have a friend that asks you for a favor as the antecedent, and then you doing the favor as the behavior, and your friend showing their sincere appreciation is the consequence. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
So how will this consequence affect your future favor-doing behavior when you're asked by a friend?
Sure.
It'll increase it, and you'll probably do more favors.
The worst favor.
So this time the antecedent is the fact that a baby has not been fed in a few hours. The behavior is crying, and the resulting consequence is the baby being fed. There's the baby being fed. So how will this affect future crying when the baby is hungry?
She'll continue to cry.
More crying, yeah. Keep crying. Increase crying, whatever, however you want to put it. More crying. Baby. Little baby.
But they learn to stop at the sight of the bottle. So.
They do?
Yeah.
Because it's going.
Yeah. She's like, oh.
Like I don't have to bother her
Right,
anymore.
yeah.
She gets the picture.
Yeah.
Okay, so last one. You're out at recess with Mrs. Strict, and you run up the slide, and she says, young man, we do not run up the slide. That's not okay. You're benched. I don't know where I'm from. They call it benched. Like you're on timeout. You have to. Yeah, like you're benched.
You should spell that.
Yeah.
B-E-N.
Because it doesn't
Bench.
sound like.
G-H.
Like you're on a bench. You have to sit on the bench.
No, but it sounds like.
It's kind of what it's like. You're also that too.
It's cool. We can edit.
Edit that out. So what does this affect? What effect does this have on future behavior when you're at the playground with Mrs. Strict?
You won't run
I don't ride the slide anymore.
You might, because kids thinking about it. It is a very big slide.
Giant.
That little girl's probably real scared.
Because in the summertime,
They're
it
the good
was
ones.
horrible and they were so hot.
You'd
like burn your
Burning hot.
It's like,
Yeah.
But burning hot.
And your hands smell.
See your hands smell?
Yeah.
Yeah, like dirt and yuckiness. Okay, so a typically developing child will experience infinite numbers of these little ABC units from the time they were born, and then they just combine in infinitely complex ways with their behavior, other people's behavior, their own behavior. And what ends up happening is that young children seem to acquire behavior at like an almost magical rate. Like it's like, here's 100 new words in a week. However, Children with intellectual and developmental disabilities, such as autism, don't seem like they learn from their natural environment as easily. So there could be a bunch of reasons for this. We don't fully understand autism, so we don't know, but just to give a few, it could be because the consequences that are reinforcing for a typically developing kid, or like for you or me, such as praise or attention, might not function as actual reinforcers, or a kid with autism might not imitate. So imitating is how a lot of behaviors happen for the first time so that they can actually be reinforced. Or maybe the child doesn't have the motor or prerequisite skills to engage in the behavior so that it can be reinforced. So the behavior is too difficult for them to even do it, and then it doesn't increase and combine the way it does with other kids. So this leads us to discrete trial teaching, or DTT. You might also hear this called discrete trial training or discrete trial therapy. So they all mean the same thing, doesn't matter really what you say. So discrete trial teaching involves breaking down complex behaviors into smaller component skills. So for example, instead of saying like write your name, those component behaviors are like hold a pencil, draw a line, draw a curve, and all the little pieces of your name. And then you incorporate these skills into this ABC unit that we just talked about, and then these are called discrete trials. And then you systematically present high numbers of them within a session in order to fast track the learning process for these kids, or to mimic what the learning process is like for a typically developing kid. So what's the definition of a discrete trial? A discrete trial is a concise learning opportunity with a clear beginning, middle, and end. Each part corresponds to a part of the ABCs, which, to review, were the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. The corresponding parts of a discrete trial are the SD, the response, and the consequence. So each of these things, the SD is a type of antecedent, the response is the behavior we're looking at, and the consequence is the same thing. So we're going to go over each component of the discrete trial later in a lot of detail, but for now, here's just like a brief overview and definition for each part. So the SD is a type of antecedent. For now, a good way to think of it is an instruction or a signal that tells a person how to behave. So for example, hearing the phone ring tells you to do what? Pick it up and answer it. Hearing the teacher say, line up at the door, everybody, tells you to line up at the door. Seeing a stoplight tells you to stop. Seeing your grandmother in the room tells you to
cry, because why is she alive? I'm so confused.
Cower or terror, a ghost. Okay, maybe that was a bad example. My idea was to like behave appropriately or hug her, yeah.
So bigger ones.
Being in a library tells you to
be quiet.
So these are some common discrete trial SDs that you're going to actually be using, and then I'm just going to demonstrate all of them. So one of them is, can you see me? Yes. So one of them might be to say do this and then do an action. So it would be like this. Do this, or do this, or do this. So that might be an SD that you give while you're working with your kiddos. It might be also to like say blank. So say, you want them to say a word. So you'd be like, say apple, say baba, say la la la, say say cuckoo clock, say didgeridoo, things like that. And then you might say, like, say if you have a coffee and a soda in front of you, and you might say like touch coffee or touch soda, so that you can get them to identify it. You might say, what's this? And point to an object or a picture. So like, what's this? What's this? What's this? And then another one is matching. So you give them a set of things, like, so say you give them a picture of a dog, a bird, and a frog, and then you hand them the dog, and you say match, and that's the SD for that. So when presenting trials to the learner, the SD will usually be some kind of instruction or question. such as clap your hands, or what is this, or find the train. So now we're going to do the response. The response is the behavior you're trying to teach. So after you present your SD, your learner should respond. Spoiler alert, they also might not respond. It's not too uncommon. So some examples of behavior taught during discrete trials are, so just to look at our examples before, each SD has an appropriate response that goes with it that should be fairly obvious. So when you say do this and do something, like do this, the learner imitates your action. And that's the response that goes with that SD. If you say apple, apple, and then they repeat what you said. If you say touch the coffee, touching it is the response. If you say what is, they can't see the computer in the thing. What's this? Water bottle. Like they name the object. And then if you say match, you want them to somehow indicate which one is the match, like touch the match or put it on top of it. So after your learner responds or fails to respond, you're going to then decide if they responded correctly or incorrectly, and not responding at all counts as not responding correctly. And then their response determines the next part of the trial, which is the consequence. So there are two types of consequences, either reinforcement or a neutral informative response, or neutral/informative response. So reinforcement is for correct responses, and the neutral consequence is for incorrect responses. So the informational no, it's not meant to be a reprimand so the neutral informative consequence is called an informational no. It's called this because it's not meant to be a reprimand or punishment, just simply to tell the learner that what they did was not the correct response that we're looking for. It's given in a flat tone, so it's not confused with reinforcement. And just a little note, this training is meant to be a general training about ABA, not just meaningful day procedures. So there's actually lots of things to do that you could possibly do when you see an incorrect response. Giving a no isn't like the end all and be all. You could do, for example, some companies use like a 2-second pause, like you just kind of ignore for 2 seconds, or like you put your head down for 2 seconds. The main point of all the consequences to incorrect behaviors is you just don't want to reinforce it. And nowhere do they, at this point in time, in this day and age, is there ever like a punishing consequence. But like the old research was with like a thigh slap.
Or a lemon in your eye.
Yeah. But not anymore. You just want to avoid reinforcing it. So like, as a company, we pick one for staff training purposes. We can't have everybody like willy-nilly choosing, because then there wouldn't be any consistency. But you might hear from your behavior consultant like, oh, we're actually going to use a head down procedure with this kid because it might work for them. Really, all these things are learner specific is the real answer to what's the correct thing to do. But for practicality purposes, most places just pick one and use it. So now on to the good stuff, the reinforcement. So let's go over the definition of reinforcement, because our technical ABA definition is different than a common everyday definition that you might get if you just asked somebody off the street and said like, what's reinforcement? So a reinforcing consequence is a consequence that makes the behavior more likely to occur in the future. So in other words, it makes it increase. This definition makes things a little bit trickier, because it means that there's no magic formula for increasing behavior good behavior that we want to see from our kids. So we can't know that like candy or praise are always reinforcing for every kid. And by the same token, we can't assume that just because something was a reinforcer for one behavior that it's going to be a reinforcer for another behavior. And just also, we can't be sure that just because something is a reinforcer right before lunch that it's going to be a reinforcer right before bedtime. So this presents a challenge, but it makes sense when we think about how different people's tastes and behaviors can be. So there's the whole like one man's trash is another man's treasure. So we'll go into this in much more detail later because we're going to talk extensively about reinforcement. But here's just a few little important points. So reinforcement is the most important part of discrete trial teaching. Reinforcement is basically learning. Like reinforcement is the mechanism that these kids learn by because their behavior is being increased so that we see that behavior more. And that's what learning is. So if you don't have any reinforcement, then you don't have learning and you're not going to see any progress with your kids. A therapist's ability to find reinforcing consequences for their learner is their most valuable skill and makes the difference between a therapist who just goes through the motions and one who changes the lives of their clients. And this, in case you can't tell by the red, bold, underlined font, this like can't be overstated. If you sit there with your kid and say, touch blue. Oh, yeah. Touch red. That's red. Touch purple. Sweet. Even if you're being really enthusiastic and that kid, for that kid, praise doesn't even matter. Even if you're like, yes, you did it, red. And they're like, la 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 la. You're not reinforcing their behavior even though you're doing all the steps. So it's really about like, are you actually reinforcing behavior? So while there is no formula or set rule about what exactly will function as a reinforcer, here's some common options that we use that are good things to try, that like if you try all these, hopefully you can find something. So for example, like praise and feedback, we do that all the time whether or not we think it functions as a reinforcer for a kid because we want to teach it to be a reinforcer. So even if you know your kid doesn't care about social praise at all, you're still going to say like, good job, you did it, I'm proud of you, that was so good, you're correct, you're the smartest person in the world. Small edibles sometimes we use. Physical interaction, like this is like tickles or squeezes or like some people like head squeezes, hand squeezes, jumping, spinning, picking up and like pretending to put you in the trash. I had a kid who just like, that was his favorite thing in the world. It was like, put me in the trash can one more time, please. Tokens or points towards a bigger prize because in discrete trials the pace is fast. So if the big reinforcer is like time on the computer, we can't give you 30 minutes of time on the computer in between.
Yeah.
So
it's immediately like.
She's gonna watch it because she's editing them. Physical interaction, tokens or points. So something like computer time or favorite television show is not a good discrete trial reinforcer, but that doesn't mean that we can't give like, okay, if you get 20 points, then I'll let you watch a television show, and then it's like, cool, one more point, cool, one more point, oh, 2 points. Conversation, not all of our kids, we work with kids who are 14 years old, so obviously you're not going to tickle and squeeze and hug and bounce those people on the trampoline. You might just do what you do with another adult and just kind of talk to them. And then you can get creative. This is this very simple list that like you might do funny faces, or a lot of kids like to be silly, or a lot of kids like when you take like to flip books. So it could be literally anything under the sun might be reinforcing. You say puppets?
Yeah.
Some kids like
Singing
puppets.
them songs.
Singing songs. Yeah.
Way back.
Yeah. Singing songs is a good one. We all like that. So putting it all together, I'm going to demonstrate some of the common SDs and responses of some of the common programs, and then we'll just do practice. So maybe if we do like an imitation.
What do you mean?
Can you do an imitation with it? I'm sorry. You're just closer.
And then just do don't get more than 2 wrong in a row. Because we're not doing prompting yet.
Okay, so what?
Like just do rights and wrongs.
Okay.
but not.
So get it right, get it wrong.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you can do.
She's not gonna do it no prompt.
Yeah, yeah, because we're just like basic trial.
Okay.
We haven't got the prompting skills yet.
Yes. So this is what imitation is an important skill that we teach because it's kind of a foundational skill that if you can't imitate, how do you go through life? You can, you know, like that's how you learn to line up when everybody else lines up. It's if you miss an instruction, that's how you copy your friends. So we teach a lot of kids with autism do not imitate. So we teach imitation, and it looks like this. Do this. Yeah, that's doing that. That was so good. Do this. No, do this. Oh, that's perfect. You did so good. And we're also going to pretend Courtney likes tickles and she likes being silly. Do this. Do this. No, do this. Whoop. Do this. No, do this. Yep, that's it. That's perfect. So that's what that looks like. Instructions, we also teach like following simple instructions. Some kids with autism, it's like you would never know that anyone is in the room talking to them. Like they don't respond at all. So sometimes we teach just responding to simple instructions. Like for example, touch your nose. Whoop whoop, that's good job. Touch your nose. Touch your eyes. No, touch your eyes. Yes, touch your eyes. Touch your ears. Monster's gonna come get you. Put your arms up. No, put your arms up. No, put your arms. Yeah, there you go. Clap. Woo woo! Good job, Courtney. So that's what that looks like. Sometimes you teach to identify objects. So, by what you say. Oh, you can't see. So this looks like. Well, this is still going.
Yeah.
Did it get bumped? Touch the water bottle. No, touch the water bottle. Yes, water bottle. Touch the phone. Yes, Courtney, it's so good. You're a brilliant evil genius. Touch the coffee. Ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh. Touch the coffee. Yes, good work. Ooh, ooh. Touch the phone. Okay. We also do teaching to say name objects. So that would look like, what's this? Phone. Oh yes. Do you want to make a call? Hello. Calling super wonderful behavior from Miss Courtney. It's arrived. What's this? Bottle. Yeah, it is a bottle. We're gonna drink it. Ready? What is this? Phone. Yeah, Courtney, give me a high five. Whoop. And a tickle on the head. What's this? Cup. Yes, it is a cup. We'll go.
Correct.
Wait, that's what. That's what
It is a cup.
I feel like cup. You're not wrong. And then matching looks like.
Edit.
Time waster. There we go. Alright. Oh,
That looks so good.
I know, I'm like,
The worst.
you guys gonna have some on it?
Oh,
while you're
yeah.
working, I might just eat your lunch. Okay?
Don't do that.
Go to cookie.
I miss my snacks.
Just while you're working. You can't really
I need to quit getting cookies.
but
Yeah, you can kind of. Bike, ball, bat.
that. Okay, there we go. Match. No, match. Yes, that's it. Match. Courtney is the smartest person in the universe. Oop, oop. Match. Yay, you did it. That's it. Match. Nope. Match. That's it. That's the bat. That's what that looks like.
You are so smart!
Thanks. Thanks. How does this go back?
Oh, here you go.
Okay. And then, really, if people are watching at home,
Match your own objects.
yeah. I mean, we're gonna like have everybody practice, but this will just be a skill that we check off when we come around watching you, whatever. Because I don't think, I mean, like those were some of the common programs, and having everybody do it right now is kind of.
Now we're going to switch up the groups, and
Yeah.
you're going to practice.
Yeah. So expect when you're doing your floor work, someone will come by with a checklist and ask you to demonstrate all of these things for them as part of your competence-based part of the training. So you might have noticed a few things. The pacing. Trials are delivered at a pretty fast pace with only a few seconds between each trial to provide reinforcement and take data. I forgot to do the data part. And then data is collected after every trial. We'll learn more about this later, even though I didn't do it.
We still won't worry about it later.
So this pacing, this like fast pace, is what allows us to get those high number of learning opportunities that a typically developing kid has, and provide them for our learners. So just a little side note, our kids don't always do the behavior that we want them to do. For some of these are brand new behaviors, so they've never clapped before when someone has told them to clap, so why would they do it now? That's why we add a prompt, which is something that helps them do it. Like we might just hold their hands and help them clap. So just a little background for this method of teaching. This is a method of teaching that was developed based on the principles, which are the ABCs of ABA by Dr. Ivar Lovaas. Empirical support for the effectiveness of this type of intervention in the treatment of autism was first demonstrated by a 1987 study, which resulted in 47% of the treatment group achieving normal educational and intellectual functioning, and another 40% achieving significant improvement, which is pretty big because these were kids who were diagnosed with autism or at risk. So for nearly half of them to improve to the point where they were achieving normal educational and intellectual functioning is a big deal. And then several replications have been conducted and achieved similar results. And even since then, there's even more research where they have improved on those numbers. And then the treatment in the study involved 30 to 4 hours of discrete trial teaching per week provided to young children. And so the kids were like from 3 to 5. So that's just kind of important to know, you know, when we're treating a 14-year-old for 3 hours a week, we're not going to say like, this is what we're doing. We're doing, you know, discrete trial and it's based on these results of 40% improvement, when really we can't say that. But we are using those same strategies that have been demonstrated to be effective. So just, this is kind of what it looks like. This is a before and after video. I know we just talked about, and if you're familiar, if you're a current employee or you've done this before, you might notice some of the strategies here and be like, they're not doing things right. I think this is like a pre and post probe test, so they're not going to be really trying to teach, they're just trying to demonstrate whether the kid can or can't do the skills. So here's before, and I might have to.
Yeah, just run through them. Arms up.
Oh, do this. Good job.
Touch knees.
Do this.
So that's a before. And not exaggerating. That's what.
Okay, what have you got there?
I don't know what this is. It always automatically plays.
When they're
Next
on
one.
YouTube, they go on to, yeah, to
What's it? Right, lock it, lock it.
And after.
What's it? Right, lock it, lock it. Lock it, lock it. Give me a hug. Give me a hug. Okay, good job. Wave bye. Wave bye. Raise arms. Wave bye. Touch nose. Touch your nose. Okay. Touch toes. Touch toes. Touch head. Touch head. Touch tummy. Touch tummy. Okay. Clap hands. Clap hands. Stomp feet. Stomp feet. Touch nose. Touch nose. Okay. Touch shoulders. Turn around.
Like they're not supposed to reinforce to see if they'll do it without all that.
No, because I'm like,
Jump.
should have better reinforcement than that.
Yeah,
Okay.
At some point.
Touch knees. Touch ears. Blow.
Yeah, you don't go.
Yeah, you're not
Okay.
touching. Yeah. Oh, it's fun. Get out. Oh. So there you go, and that is literally like that kind of rough early session. It really will look like that with a lot of our kids. But then if, like when we said before, if you don't have reinforcement, you don't have anything, that's how you get to the second video. It might not have looked like she was being really forcing, because she was just saying, okay, like, all right. But I think that's because it was a pre and a post test, so she's not trying to teach in that moment. She's just trying to demonstrate, you know, before and after. But yeah, hopefully that's very exciting, because that's what you're going to be doing. The end.